So hi, yeah, my name is Stephen Tapp. I'm the Chief Economist at the Canadian Chamber, and welcome to our session today on the future of virtual connectivity. I will start with just a very brief bio of our guest, Aparna Bawa. Aparna is the Chief Operating Officer at Zoom. She has an impressive background in building infrastructure to help rapidly growing tech companies scale up. She's got some previous C-suite experience at Magento Commerce, Nimble Storage, among others. And she began her career as a corporate and securities attorney, where she was an investment banker at Lehman Brothers and at Deutsche Bank, executing IPOs and M&A transactions for a variety of tech clients. So Aparna, welcome so much today, and thanks for being here at our conference.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so I think before I jump into the one-on-one discussion that we've got planned today, I always bring a chart with me everywhere I go, and so I figured I'm just going to do one. Don't worry, not too many charts, but I got one chart here, and what I think that will show to our audience is just the rapid rise of remote work that we've seen. This is not necessarily unique to Canada; it's happening across the world. And the key numbers there to show is that before the pandemic, we had about 5% of total hours that were worked in Canada were done remotely. So there were obviously people in the tech space and freelancers and the like that were doing remote work. During the first lockdowns, that number shot up. So StatsCan, our official fiscal agency, measures what was effectively a tenfold increase in the incidence of remote work during the first lockdowns in the spring of 2020. Things have come down a little bit with changing of restrictions, but we're now at about 25% of hours worked in Canada are being done remotely. So that's been obviously a rapid change from pre-pandemic. That's like about a 5x kind of factor now. And the surveys that I'm looking at of businesses and of both employees as well, they suggest this 1 in 4 share will from work from home will probably continue after the pandemic is done. And we just note that this is happening in Canada. These are Canadian numbers, but I think you're seeing the same trends across advanced economies pretty much. I think given the fortunate spot that we're in, we probably should be aware of the fact that there's huge variation across sectors. So depending upon the nature of job tasks that people have, remote work is very high, as I mentioned, in professional services, finance, and insurance. It's still a majority in education and public administration, so well over 50 to 70% in those jobs. Of course, it's much lower for in-person services, things like accommodation and food services, agriculture, construction, where the numbers are 5 or 10%, much lower there. I would just say, as a general observation from my perspective, I think it's pretty fair to say that this kind of work from home experiment that we've had during the pandemic has gone a lot better than most people had expected. Although it's not without its challenges. When we talk to workers in Canada, of those new remote workers, about 90% tell us that they are at least as productive as they were than when they were working in the office full time, and about 1/3 say that they're actually more productive working at home than they were working in the office. Workers are enjoying this flexibility that they have to kind of do their laundry, as I can do right now as we're doing a session. Remote work for the workforce or for companies, it lets them hire workers that are outside their direct commuting zones, and that opens up the talent pool immensely. And the fact that we're not commuting as much as before, it's saving people time and money, and it's giving some environmental benefits. So with that sort of general economic side opener, Aparna, let me bring you into the conversation now. So let me start with the kind of the Zoom origin stories. So before the pandemic, we've got a lot of people on the call today, a lot of Canadian businesses, well over 1,000 that registered. My guess, although I could be wrong, I don't think I would say a few were using Zoom regularly before the pandemic happened. And in my case, I was just giving a remote lecture at a university that was like a 3-hour drive away. So we used Zoom. That was the first experience I had with tech and with universities kind of initially early on. Um, and of course, now the platform is essential. It's ubiquitous. It's not just education. It's across business. It's in our day-to-day lives. When my mom sent me a Zoom invite, I knew that things had kind of really taken off for you guys. So before we get into the company's kind of meteoric rise and the success story, can you kind of go back a little bit before that in terms of the company's beginnings and how and when did Zoom get started and all this?
Sure. So we were originally founded in 2011, and our founder, Eric Yuan, was he'd grown through the ranks at a company called WebEx that was also a online video web conferencing solution that was ultimately acquired by Cisco. And so he had started as an engineer at WebEx, sort of grew through WebEx his own career, and then when they got acquired, he sort of kept on with post Cisco acquired WebEx. And he really felt like there was a need for a web solution, a web conferencing solution that really put video first and was really easy to use. And so he set out on this mission to start Zoom with a video first mentality in order to bring that sort of more human connection than just the conference call over the audio line where you don't see the other person on the other side. And building on that early focus on video, the next couple years were focused around moving from simply, a video connection communication tool to something of a platform that focuses on collaboration of the whole, the whole ecosystem of, how we interact with other people and how we bring value to our businesses and vice versa.
Okay. So yeah, so as the opening chart that I had showed, we basically saw that the pandemic happened. We had millions of people that suddenly were working from home. This is
Yeah.
a huge spike in demand for video conferencing services. Like, how
Yep.
fast did demand grow? How fast did the Zoom user base grow from, if we're looking back to 2019 up to now? Like,
Yeah.
how fast was that incremental growth?
It was extremely fast, probably unprecedented. And you had your experience where your mom sent you a Zoom invite. I had my experience when one of my kids' friends' mother called me, when we all kind of went home in early March, and stopped going into work, stopped going into school, and said, "Hey, girl, I finally know what you do now." I'm seeing this in my house. Every about 4 Zoom screens at all times. But I would say the growth was pretty, meteoric, and partly because we provided an opportunity for people to connect in and forge those human connections, whether it's work, whether it's personal, at a time when we needed it most. And so, just to give you a sense of scale, at the end of December of 2019, we probably, on average, had about 10 million daily meeting participants. And by April, we had about 300 million daily meeting participants. That type of growth is very hard to do over sort of 3-month period. Now, I would say the benefit for us is a very cloud-based, highly scalable technology. We are able to add capacity very quickly without needing to go on-prem customer sites or even sort of um, different locations across the world. Our backend networks are set up that we're able to expand capacity very, very quickly. And I think that's the beauty of the technology architecture that I was talking about, sort of video first connectivity and technology architecture that Eric had, envisioned in 2011.
But so I get how the obviously tech can scale and that can move up quickly, but how did you sort of maintain service quality in such rapid growth? And how did you,
Hmm.
kind of more importantly, you need more workers, you need that workforce to grow. So how do you identify the
Right.
talent? How do you onboard people all
Right.
in this whole environment? How do you
Well,
scale that side of things?
right. So, well, the first things first is, we at Zoom were also going through, the downsides of a pandemic. Our own workforce had been sent home. Um, we what I would say is I think it starts with culture. Our culture is very much focused on, our community, our customers, our own employees, and care for ourselves. And it's a foundational culture based on care. And in one of those aspects, when everybody went home, suddenly, we didn't have the need to put on events. We didn't really have the need for, having workplace facilities or reception. And I'm so proud that we sort of rallied as a company. You had event folks sort of becoming experts on billing, redeploying the EBC that was physical into a more virtual environment. We sort of redeployed the entire company first and foremost immediately in March of 2020 to address the needs of a rapidly expanding user base. The other thing I would say is we sort of leveraged our own platform to do some of the things that you were talking about in association with your slide. Number one, we shifted to Zoom recruiting. I mean, obviously we had to, but lo and behold, you have a very efficient recruiting cycle where you are getting to look the candidate in the eye over video. That just works. You can sort of tailor the onboarding experience for your new employees in a much more sort of efficient manner. So we kind of made onboarding a 5-hour very sort of rich experience through Zoom. And we've been able to continue sort of focusing on caring for our own employee base and sort of onboarding and making our own employee base much more productive and much more efficient through, maniacal use of Zoom. And I have to say part of it is also an acceptance of, we bring ourselves to our daily jobs. And so to your point about doing laundry, we care for the entire employee. So if a kid were to walk into, if my kid were to walk through this door, which my kid has done on an interview with CNN, you will not believe it, but, and just start talking to me, we all kind of roll with it. I mean, that's life. And so I think that's those different elements, the power of the technology and the power of our underlying culture of care really helps you as a company expand to meet the need.
Yeah, I remember I was working from home even well before this, and that BBC video of the guy when the
Oh,
kid came out, just
hilarious.
like
I know.
please don't let that happen to me. That's been my constant
Well,
fear.
I had so much empathy for him because, that probably would have happened to me many times, just given the right situation.
Okay, so I thought that I was busy as an economic forecaster in the pandemic, just right in the middle of it. I mean, obviously you're in the eye of the storm. So what were the days like? Like how did you cope? How'd you get through it? Was it just all full on and and just so much to
Uh,
do in so little time? Like
yeah,
how
I
did it
mean,
go for the first little bit?
I would say it was pretty rough in that, I would get up in the morning at 7 or 6, more 6, start work at 7. First call would be meeting would be at 7. And then, you're constantly addressing issues every minute of the day until about midnight, 1 a.m. And then, you hit the pillow and it's rinse and repeat and you do it again. And I would say that one of the most powerful motivators that allows you to do something like that for more than a year is we saw the benefit that the platform was providing to our customer base. And we have a channel on our sort of message, our chat, Zoom chat, our company Zoom chat. We have a channel for cool and inspiring stories, and it's a real motivator to when you're tired and you're complaining and you feel like you're overworked and you just want to go out and have a night off and you can't, and you feel sorry for yourself, you just realize how many people are able to get married on Zoom, have funerals on Zoom, connect with 95-year-old grandmothers on Zoom, and really advance even their own economic opportunity. So I will give you a story. So I live in downtown or near downtown Saratoga, which is a very sleepy town in the Bay Area. Lovely, wonderful town, but not San Francisco or San Jose. And I used to work out on the weekends with a trainer, and I would force myself to get up on Saturday. That would be my hour to exercise and go downtown. Um, well, she couldn't do it. The gym's closed. And she was really worried. And I said, hey, why don't you just think about Zoom? And so she did. And it gave her the opportunity. I think her business is actually more enlarged, much more fruitful for her because she used Zoom, expanded the pie. I actually referred a lot of people from the East Coast to her, believe it or not. She's a great trainer. And then she ended up getting the opportunity to sort of move to a different part of California and sort of make it work for her for a variety of different reasons and not necessarily have to give up her customer base. So it's those kinds of stories, or even, my son's tennis coach is Irish and said, I have a brother who is severely hearing impaired. And for the first time, he is able to participate with your annotations and your transcription capability. He is able to participate in our family calls and he sets them up, and it's amazing. And it's very different from texting, where you can still have a live conversation and he can read the lips and he can see sort of the transcription. So he can participate in real time as opposed to sort of waiting for a translator. Um, I mean, it's just amazing stories like that that kind of remind you that it's something beyond you. And yes, you're tired. And yes, there are lots of, reasons for you to feel sorry for yourself. But this is not the time when you are providing a service that is clearly delivering a lot of value. You want to keep it going.
Well, I hope you get a vacation when things
I have
open
had.
back up and people
Do
can
not
fly.
feel bad for me. I've had time off. Trust me.
Um, so here as an economist, here's what I'm thinking. Like at the start of the pandemic, there was lots of alternative options in video conferencing. So Skype is one example from before.
Mm.
Skype was well positioned to capitalize and do
Yeah.
well. Google with Google Meets, there's all other sorts of platforms. What is the differentiator? Like what was your comparative advantage? Why did Zoom catch on when there's other big behemoths that you were able to sneak up on? How did that happen? What's different about what you're doing versus what
It
they're
just
doing?
works. I mean, it's our tagline, but it's true. You could be anywhere in the world, and you probably can get on video. We work in from any device. You can be on a phone, a tablet, a PC, um, and you can just connect, and you can have low bandwidth situations, um, any sort of rural India, um, all the way to sort of New York, and it just works. The video quality is really good. The audio quality is really good. Um, we have so much feedback that says, I don't have to think about. I can trust that if even if I'm right on time, I'm not a minute early. I don't have to futz around. I can just get on and be productive. The UI is very simple, very easy to use. To your point, your mother sent you a Zoom
She's a
invite.
tech
Yeah,
wizard,
there
and
you
she's
go.
able to
My
pull it out.
mother-in-law
So
is too.
yeah.
My kids have become super users of Zoom. My 13-year-old tells me all the time, like, this is how you do this is how you do that. It's very intuitive, it's easy to use, simple, reliable. It appeals to our need for simplicity.
Yeah, so one of the challenges I think that most all platforms had when a lot of things shift online, you've now got conversations that are confidential about either financial or legal or other issues. And obviously Zoom and others had to make some changes. What did you need to put in place to ensure security, confidentiality, and privacy?
Well, we have spent a lot of time making sure that the platform is protected by extensive encryption and data security protocols. We've also spent a lot of time making sure that our users are educated and understand, you know, um, their privacy settings, and how they want to interact with the platform and with other participants, and what do they want to share about themselves. So we've spent a lot of time enhancing the platform with these type of controls and technology. We've also spent a lot of time educating our user base, and I would say, there we provide a platform that is flexible, and we have some customers who want to have more control over deciding what features and what sort of capabilities they use versus others. We have some groups that just say, give me something that works and I don't want to have to deal with it. And the beauty of our platform is we're flexible to address all of those needs.
So flexibility, simplicity, just sort of winning
Yeah.
on having a better user
Yeah,
experience. So
absolutely.
okay, cool. So let's talk about we had this, I would say outside of tech, there was this work in the office equilibrium where things
Hmm.
worked and people were in there and you physically saw people. We had the pandemic that shifted us, more or less, as we said, to work from home, and that worked. And I'm wondering now about obviously everybody's expecting that there
Yeah.
will be this hybrid model, this hybrid future. What do you see as the challenges of that environment, and how can you make hybrid work?
Right, right. So, I mean, I think that the problem you are articulating is the fact that we're going to have, I think it's not no longer an experiment, Steve. It is full on reality that the people have spoken and they want flexibility, whether it's you're fully remote, whether it's you're sometimes in the office, sometimes not. Is it prescribed days? Is it just sort of you come in when you can and you hotel desk? I don't know. Those are different flavors for every type of company, as you so appropriately stated. It also depends on the type of business and the type of work you do. Construction, you kind of got to be on the site for the most part, and sort of finance, maybe not. Maybe you can do Zoom when needed, for to meeting as much as possible. When you have sort of high impact, high intensity meetings, you go into the office. I don't know, but I would say the most important thing is to make sure that the experience for each set, whether they're in the office or not, especially when it's mixed. I think the problem is most pronounced when it's mixed. When you
That's
have
what
a
people
group
are
of
worried about, is
people,
just how do you level the
yeah,
playing field when you're not in the
exactly.
office, other people in the office? How do you
Other
actually
people
feel
in the
like you're
office, yes,
engaged? And yeah.
exactly. Well, there's some things that we can do as a platform to enable that. So we've launched a smart gallery feature, which will, if you're in a room, it's able to sort of pick up your video feed for you and sort of create a personal tile, a Zoom tile for you. So even though I'm in a conference room with four other people, I will have my own Zoom tile so that the person that is remote can see my expressions and my reactions and sort of engage with me directly, as opposed to seeing the back of my head, depending on where the camera is placed in the conference room. The other sorts of things we're doing is, we're launching a whiteboard experience where you can start your sort of brainstorming out of a Zoom meeting. You can bring it into a Zoom meeting. You can collaborate in person. You can write on something, and it can also be added to remotely from a virtual participant. And then when everybody leaves the meeting, you can take that whiteboard with you guys and continue. You can maybe incorporate it through your chat as you sort of direct message each other about it, and you can sort of save it in your file system. So those are the types of things. The other thing I would say is, we want to have more people sort of be given the opportunity to um, interact. So whether that's sort of conference room control, volume control, space control, et cetera, we're providing different ways to bring that hybrid experience together.
Yeah, it's funny because I just remarked that we had a meeting in person around the executive table. We had done Zoom meetings, and I just said, well, the dynamics are totally different. The being in person with 10 people around a board table versus having a Zoom meeting with those same 10 people, it's a different experience, and it's a different dynamic. So maybe a little bit more about the business conference side of things. So
Mm.
I mean, I used to get on a plane and fly across the country and talk for 45 minutes about the economy, and then take a day out of my schedule and do that. And we all
Yes.
knew it as we did it. We're like, well, this is kind of inefficient and stupid that we're doing this. We can do this over online. But we kind of worried that you're missing the other parts, the networking, the social bits. And like, what do you see as the future of business conferencing like
Yeah.
this? Is it breakout rooms? Is it, how do you recreate some of that
Yeah.
in-person stuff that you miss with just a screen, two-dimensional discussions?
Right. Well, honestly, it started with, our we've already had sort of services that provide more features for events, whether it's the breakout rooms and sort of the ability to come together as a big group, sort of break out into small groups. And the breakout rooms, I cannot tell you how much feedback we've had that works so well. And we've also had a webinar capability where we launched something called Zoom Events recently. Um, and it is for that conference. And the reality is, in the future, conferences are going to probably be both. There's going to be a virtual aspect to it, an in-person aspect to it, dare I say, hybrid, for the reason that you're just saying. There are going to be some people that come in person. There's going to be, the conference organizers want to expand the audience. The more
We,
people you
we
can
we
get, the
want
better.
speakers that we can
And
get that are
yes,
in Europe that would
exactly.
fly over for the day, and yeah.
Exactly. So you want participants. So if you can offer both, there's something for everybody, and you don't have to be subject to the time sink to get on that plane and come. So what we're working on is the ability to offer that solution in a very rich way, such that you can have experiences where you have networking opportunities, where you have, sort of the smaller group meetings that are offshoot of the main presentation, et cetera. Even so, something as basic as even a way to get people excited and have, raffles or competitions for swag online. I mean, honestly, so everything from registration, ticketing, sort of event management, schedule management, the incorporation of some of these features such as smart gallery I just talked about, in order to make that conference experience very rich for both sides. So that is something that we've rolled out, and I would say, I mean, the adoption has been great so far. I mean, it's obviously a newer sort of lineup for our product. We've always had the online webinar, but sort of the Zoom events in the context of a hybrid conference is very promising.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've noticed we moved a lot of things online, and things that in
Yeah.
many dimensions, things have actually improved where you're getting better discussion, better
Yep.
breakouts.
Absolutely.
So we're getting close to the end of time, but I want to do kind of a look back, look ahead. So let's think about timing. If this pandemic had happened 5 years ago, do you think society, do you think technology was up to the task? Would we have more or less gotten through as we did now, or did it really take closer to the either 5G or just better bandwidth and better experience? Like how would we have fared
We
five
would have
years
been
ago?
fine. I mean, I think it would have been. I don't know about fine. We're all suffering still today. I'm not sure that we're fully out of this, but humanity in general. But I think if this had happened 5 years ago, the underlying core technology and the scalability of the architecture, it would have been there. We would have had a lot less people to start, so it would have been pretty challenging to scale. Yes, but from a from an idea perspective, a video first perspective, the bones were there 5 years ago. So I'm pretty confident. Nobody wishes a pandemic on the world for sure. I just feel very lucky and privileged to be a part of a solution that did offer a lot of solace and respite to people that are taxed all over the world.
So then let me do the final question. I'll close with that. We looked back and sort of talked about that. Let's look ahead. In the next over the next 5 years, you talked about a lot of the technologies that Zoom's working on, but what do you see in either virtual reality space or just video conferencing in general, the things that Zoom are working on? What do we have to look forward to? And I'll even throw in a little tiny bit of what is the metaverse? Is this thing gonna do anything? Or are we just
To
all
be
talking about,
honest,
you know,
yes, I mean, I think the world it's you're bringing up a point. It's tough to see what is the reality and what is the future of reality versus um what's marketing, I would say. So that sort of skepticism, I'm hearing it in your voice, but what I feel very hopeful about is you started off this discussion by saying this workplace, this work from home experiment. What I feel very hopeful and very positive about is that the envisioning a different reality for the knowledge worker or frankly for the human being, it's not an experiment. We can actually make it happen. So if you think something ought to be, you can make it happen. And so I feel very hopeful that all of the things that we're seeing, whether it's I bring my own avatar to my Zoom meeting, or I set up a meeting and I can interact with other folks. We can all be using the same apps on the meeting. We can, increase our productivity in the knowledge worker sense, or we can just have a lot of fun together. I I think what the biggest difference that I have noticed is that people are willing to accept that that is possible and then make it a reality. It's I don't hear the word experiment as much anymore, I would say.
okay. Well, thank you very much. Aparna, I've got many, many more questions, but it's been a great chat, and I appreciate. I guess our audience as well is just very grateful for you to stop in and,
Well,
and
thank
uh,
you very much
share
for
some of your
having me.
insights with us today. With that, I'm going to thank you and thank Zoom, and I'll turn it back to Catherine Clark.
Thank you so much.